If you're anything like me, then you might obsess over ridiculous things like getting your handlebars perfectly straight, and spend what can only be described as an upsetting amount of time trying to tweak them. You might also be surprised at the scarcity of affordable alignment jigs for this purpose. But not to worry, if the thought of your handlebars being anything but perfectly straight bothers you, like to your core, then I've got a solution for you that's easier and better than any product out there, and it'll guarantee that you get perfectly aligned handlebars every time. It requires no special tools and applies to any road, mountain, or gravel bike with drop bars or flat. Intriguing, right? Welcome! This channel features reviews, how-tos, and nerdy deep dives into the world of cycling, all filtered through this extra average cyclist with a technical background. If you want to join this community of like-minded cyclists who value smiles per mile over miles per hour, then hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you. You can also support the channel by picking up some fun original sticker designs like this one, which is an homage to the premier bike tooling brand and should appeal to all the true bike nerds and home mechanics out there. Okay, so here's what I usually observe when I see people setting up their handlebars. Usually the person will be standing over the top tube or standing in front of the bike with the headset preload set, and they're just lining up the handlebars, eyeballing it, trying to find some reference points on the fork or axle to line up with the handlebars. Now once they think they have the bars aligned, they tighten the stem pinch bolts and call it a day. Now there's nothing inherently wrong with this method, but it can lead to skewed handlebars, and I'll explain why. So if you take a look at the bike from the top down, you recognize the left-right symmetry, and you might try moving your eye until a point on the left fork leg lines up with a portion of the handlebar just to the left of the stem. Then, without moving your head, you'll see if that same point on the right fork leg aligns with a similar spot on the handlebar just to the right of the stem. Now if these points both match, then in theory the bars should be aligned. Now, the problem with this method, in my experience, is that the reference points are simply too close to the axis of symmetry of the bike, which is the imaginary line running right up the middle. And therefore, even small discrepancies in these reference points can translate to really large discrepancies out at the ends of the handlebars. Now, for instance, if you're looking down at the bike like this, and your reference points are off by just this much, you can easily see that if you extend those two axes, it's clear how far off the bars could actually be from being straight. It's a simple case of what I'm calling geometric amplification, and it's based on the concept of similar triangles that you studied back in junior high school, which for me was, 25 years ago almost? Anyways, it's a problem because while the handlebars are wide and have potential reference points that are sufficiently far from the axis of symmetry, the fork and the axle aren't very wide, so you don't have any reference points that far away from the central axis. So, my solution to this problem has been to simply widen the available reference points on the fork and wheel combo so that you can compare reference points that are sufficiently far from the axis of symmetry. By taping a rigid stick to the fork, you can now compare reference points between the fork and the handlebars that are an order of magnitude further away from the central axis than in the previous example, and you've now got much finer resolution to work with due to this simple geometric amplification. What it means now is, even if your reference points are slightly off, if you use reference points this far from the axis of symmetry, then it won't matter that much as those discrepancies aren't amplified at all. Let's go one level deeper. Here's a numerical example to show you what I'm talking about. If your traditional reference points are off by just 1 millimeter, and you take those measurements at a distance of 20 millimeters from the axis of symmetry, as you might normally do, your bars will be off by an angle of about 3 degrees, which to some isn't a problem, but for me 3 degrees is certainly noticeable while riding. Now on the other hand, if your reference points are off again by 1 millimeter, but taken at a distance of 200 millimeters from the central axis, then your handlebars will only be off by 0.29 degrees, which is essentially undetectable while riding. Now, the only caveat here is that the stick you tape to the fork needs to be stiff and straight, but most importantly, parallel to the handlebars. In other words, it can't be tilted like this. Otherwise, the fork offset and the stem length starts to affect the measurement. And for obvious reasons, the stick also needs to be perpendicular to the plane of the fork. In other words, not like this. But this is pretty easily achieved by supporting the stick against symmetric points like the front or rear face of the fork legs. Now with reference points out this far, it's now much easier to fine-tune the bar straightness, and slight discrepancies aren't amplified nearly as much as they are with reference points that are closer to the central axis. Just make sure that when you line up one pair of reference points, that the opposing pair of reference points are also aligned. And that's basically it. Now this will mathematically guarantee straighter handlebars every time and eliminate any nagging suspicions that your bars might be misaligned. Now I realize this video could have just said use a stick and been 30 seconds long, but I legitimately enjoy nerding out on the math and making up fun words like geometric amplification. So thanks for humoring me and sticking around till the end. This method really does work though. I've been using it for years, and honestly with all the cycling tech available these days, I'm really surprised that there's not a better jig or some high-end park tool that can sort out handlebar alignment for you. Now perhaps it's because the solution is as simple as using a straight stick, but nonetheless this method outlined here is guaranteed to get you consistently straighter handlebars, and who doesn't want that? Well, while you ponder the math and try to remember what that arctangent function actually does, you can also check out some other nerdy bike videos over here. And I'd love to hear what you think about this method down in the comments, and if you have any handlebar alignment hacks of your own. Anyways, that's going to do it for this quick tip. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.